Hey everyone, in today's video, I wanted to talk about Command and Conquer, and it's something I don't really talk about enough on the channel because I think Command and Conquer really has a spot in many RTS gamers' hearts because it's such a beloved series. Command and Conquer is really awesome if you've not had the chance to play it, but in this video, I wanted to dive into where did Command and Conquer go. You could arguably say that the RTS genre right now is having some sort of a renaissance. There's a lot of games that are being remastered, re-released, or getting sequels. So, like notably, the Age of Empires series has had a lot of work on it lately. We're seeing continued new releases like the upcoming Stormgate, and there's plenty of strategy in RTS games that are currently doing well, and it seems like gamers are really enjoying all the new love to RTS. So, Command and Conquer's been noticeably absent from all of these remasters and re-releases and sequels, notably with the exception of one entry in 2020, which I'll get into later. But wanted to dive into what happened to Command and Conquer, and will we ever see Command and Conquer ever again, and why the brand is dormant like it is today. So let's go ahead and dive into what happened to Command and Conquer. So there's actually a lot of history with this brand. Command and Conquer has largely been associated with PC. The original entry, Command and Conquer, came out in 1995, and then it was followed up by an expansion in 1996, as well was Command and Conquer Red Alert in 1996. And there were a lot of people who enjoyed the main line entry series and a lot of people who enjoyed the Red Alert series. I actually really love both series, the main line entries as well as Red Alert. My favorite entries are actually from 2007, 2008. That's when we got Command and Conquer 3, Tiberium Wars. And then in 2008, we got Kane's Wrath, like the most awesome expansion of all time, as well as Red Alert 3, which was really great as well. In between, we saw plenty of releases for Command & Conquer, including a release in 1999 and 2000 for Command & Conquer 2 and Red Alert 2. And then in 2002 and 2003, we saw Command & Conquer Renegade and Generals during that time period. I would probably say that the series peaked during the CNC 3 and Red Alert 3 eras from 2007 to 2008. And actually, I played this series for the very first time with those entries on Xbox 360. So CNC3, Tiberium Wars, its expansion Kane's Wrath, as well as Red Alert 3 and its expansion Uprising were available on consoles back in the day on PS3 and Xbox 360. Actually, today, you can still play Command & Conquer 3, Kane's Wrath, and Red Alert 3 on modern Xbox hardware as they're backwards compatible. I think they're still available digitally for you to purchase on the Xbox store, but you can certainly just put in the disc and you can go ahead and play it on the series consoles. It's important to know, though, that the online services for all of these games are no longer active. What I mean by that is the servers were shut down many years ago. However, there is good news. There is a community-run mod. It's called Command & Conquer Online that reconnects these servers so you can continue to play online. And there's plenty of YouTubers who actually still cover Command & Conquer to this day. And I find that so incredible. I actually interviewed one of the gentlemen a few years ago, Cybert, and he has actually been on really the same trajectory as Team Respawn all of these years, despite him covering a game that's much older and I would say arguably with less of a community than Halo Wars. So shout out to him and the rest of the CNC community. There's also some mods that are actually in work for Command & Conquer 3 and Red Alert 3. There's plenty for you to download on Nexus Mods or ModDB, those sort of sites. But there's also Evolution's Real-Time Strategy Evolve. So that's like a Halo mod for Command & Conquer 3. And I've been anxiously awaiting that mod for years. So I'm hoping that we'll eventually get to play it. It's something I would love to play one of these days. But of course, that's not on my timeline. But I'm still rooting for that mod. And I hope that it comes out one of these days. So those were really the golden eras of Command and Conquer. I would say from its original release in 95 all the way to 2007, 2008. So about 12 to 13 years, this series enjoyed a lot of fantastic releases over many time periods. A few development studios worked on some of these games, but really I would say the brand fell apart in 2010's release, Command and Conquer 4 Tiberium Twilight. I'll be honest with you, I don't really know what they were thinking with this release. I think the majority of the community thinks that this game is pretty bad. I would actually agree with that. I don't think Command & Conquer 4 is that good at all. It was a really stripped down RTS. I don't even know if RTS is really is probably a generous term for this release. This release really ruined the brand, and we've not really seen a release from Command & Conquer since then. The notable exception is there's two. In 2018, there was the release of Command & Conquer Rivals on mobile. And I actually think that this is quite good from what I've been from what I've been told in the community, that Command & Conquer Rivals is pretty good as a mobile entry. And then we saw the remastered collection of the original game plus Red Alert with all of their expansions in 2020 in the Command & Conquer Remastered Collection. Surprisingly, that is on Steam, to my knowledge, without the Origin EA DRM. So I think that's pretty awesome, and I'm kind of scratching my head why that never got a console release, because we saw, again, CNC 3 and Red Alert 3 on consoles during the 360 and PS3 era, so I don't really know why we never saw that come to consoles. Now let's talk about the future. Will we see Command & Conquer have a renaissance, be revived, and thrive once again among some of these other great RTS games? To be honest, I don't really know. The EA that we see today in 2023 is very different than the EA we saw in 2010. I would say during that period in 2010 when Command & Conquer 4 came out, I think EA was under a lot of fire from fans and customers because there were too many games that EA put out that were not up to quality, and EA would shut down the studio. And that, in fact, happened to some of the studios that worked on Command & Conquer, including EA Los Angeles, who worked from Command & Conquer Generals all the way up to Command & Conquer 4, so 2003 to 2010. That studio is no longer with us, and there are plenty of studios that EA has shut down over the years, and it unfortunately turned into like a meme and a joke that EA would tell a studio to work on a game. It wouldn't meet their expectations, so they would shut the studio down. That's not really the EA today, thankfully. I think they have made some missteps with some of their entries, like mishandling BioWare with Anthem, a few other games here and there. But, they've actually done some pretty great stuff recently. I think this remastered collection is a great first step. We're seeing Respawn Entertainment making great Star Wars entries and Titanfall entries. I guess Battlefield's not in a good place right now, but that's another story. So I guess arguably mixed results, some really good entries, some head-scratching entries from EA this year. What I think I remain hopeful is EA has been working on some remakes. So like the Dead Space remake was really well received. This remastered collection of Command & Conquer was really well received. So I'm hoping this sort of momentum will continue, and EA will see that the RTS genre between the thriving Age of Empires series and all of their remasters and remakes, new entries to the RTS genre like Stormgate. We're seeing continued love for other games like StarCraft, and even Spellforce has a pretty good new entry in Spellforce 3. So the answer is we don't know what's going to happen with Command & Conquer. All I can be hopeful for is we get a new entry in the coming years. So there you have it. That's really the history of Command & Conquer, my love for it, and hopefully its future with new titles. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What's your favorite Command & Conquer game? I guess to give you a shout out to the series is you can buy the entire collection, like every Command & Conquer game ever, with the exception of this 2020 remastered collection. On the EA Origin store, whatever they're calling it these days, the EA app, the Origin app, whatever, and it goes on sale for as cheap as $10 for like 15 or 16 games. And they all play wonderfully on modern hardware. And then you can pick up, I think, still Command & Conquer 3 and Red Alert 3 on Steam with their expansions. Of course, the Remastered Collection is on Steam as well. So those are the places you can still play Command & Conquer. All right, that's going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. And I'll see you, James.